In the understanding of Taygetan and Swaruunian science, the entire universe is made up of a field of potential energy vibrating at an extremely high rate. We could call this the original source, or simply source. One single mass of the highest form of frequency and energy, the highest existential density or realm possible from which everything else spawns from, and with this creating a contrast, this is this and not that. Creating duality. There is no distinction between matter and energy, and there is no different states of matter, nor are there different states of energy either as described on Earth, only different interpretations of the same. Only one mass with no beginning and no end and outside time itself. This one mass behaves very much like water in a very high vibrational state. Water from which everything that has ever existed, exists, and will ever exist spawns from, including life itself. This then leads to the concept that space, as in interstellar and intergalactic space, is not a void, it's not empty, and it is water in a very high density vibrational shape or form. Here I can even quote the biblical phrase, from the waters above, or the waters above. This water is potential energy that is shaped into everything and anything by another force above it, and from which even this water comes from. A force that is beyond the reach of our best understanding. It is consciousness. In our understanding, gravity is the flow, or the direction and strength of attention of a consciousness. The more attention from that primordial consciousness something has, the bigger and denser an object will be. So contrary to Earth science understanding, an object's mass does not create a gravity field or flow. On the contrary, that object exists and has mass because there is a concentration of gravity there in that precise spot in space. A flow of creative intention called gravity will form an object with mass. An object like a star or a planet doesn't attract smaller objects to itself. Rather, those other smaller objects are pushed towards the star or planet like a leaf is pushed against a rock by the flow of water in a creek or river. We can also call gravity a direction of flow of potential energy in a very high vibratory primordial state. The exact way gravity flows in the field of potential energy will form different objects and will give them their particular attributes. So gravity as a flow of consciousness is not one steady stream that would only form similar lumps of mass with little to no variation between them. The flow of consciousness, gravity flows in a coded manner, by billions upon billions of mathematically co-related pulses we call harmonics. A mathematically co-related pulse in a field can also be described as music. Theory of manifestation in a few words. As described by my predecessors, this mathematically precisely coded flow of gravity emanating from consciousness is a harmonic, and when applied to the field of potential energy it also forms a frequency in that field. Then it is called harmonics of a frequency. This is best described with waves in a pond. When you throw a rock in the center of a pond, the shock waves disperse in circular forms towards the edges, bounce off them and return to the center where the emission of the energy disturbance came from. When the waves returning to the center encounter the waves that are coming from that center, they form an interference pattern. If the emitter of the disturbance in the water has a specific and very precise pulse stimulus rate, the trough and the crest of the waves, both outgoing and incoming troughs and crests synchronize to form a never collapsing crest. This is called a standing wave, and the precise pulse stimulus is called harmonics of a frequency. In the case of the harmonics of a frequency that governs the characteristics of a consciousness gravity flow, a standing wave is formed in the media that is the field of potential energy, in this case the water that forms outer space, and on the crest, and as the crest, a particle is formed giving birth to something that is an object, something specific and solid, and no longer only potential energy. And the exact characteristics of the harmonics of a frequency that governs the flow is what will determine all its unique attributes. Moving on. This means that every single subatomic particle that exists in the universe is being formed by consciousness in an intentional flow, and each little subatomic particle has its unique and specific harmonics of a frequency that governs all its attributes. Therefore, each particle in the universe is unique, exists with full intention and not as the result of randomness, and will have an energy value we can represent and measure with our mathematics. Or what Earth science has described as different particles is nothing else but different characteristics of one basic primordial particle in the energy field. Now we can imagine any place in existence, a street corner or a forest for example, as a set of numerical values representing everything that exists in it and the relationship and movement dynamics between all there is there. Everything is energy, and matter as such does not exist and is only present because consciousness gives it a value and an interpretation. Even realms of existence, those the New Age movement loves to use so much, first, third, fourth, fifth densities and so on, are nothing else but artificial non-existent and imaginary boundaries of a larger whole that includes them all. Parallel universes, worlds, density realms, and the same for multiverse, omniverses and so on. They are nothing more than what I described in one of my past videos, the necessity of the human mind, and other non-human minds as well, to fragment everything there is in order to try to comprehend the whole better. But with this they also distort and destroy that whole they are trying to understand. It is one incomprehensible whole. 1. Never had a beginning and will have no end because it is outside time itself as we know it. This is the very description of the infinite. So hard to understand by so many. The most important point to understand and retain from this video in order to understand the next, is the concept of interpreting and understanding everything there is as a set of numerical values that form and represent all objects, anything with mass and energy. Imagine a street corner or a forest formed by billions upon billions of little numbers. All those numbers that form everything there correlate with each other with movement and mathematical precision between them and are all created and controlled by consciousness itself. And so is the speed with which that interaction between them all occurs and happens. A speed and duration of time is nothing else but a perception derived from the creating intention of consciousness, both primordial source consciousness and individual consciousness held by sentient beings, because they are one and the same.